Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today's Wednesday, November 8, 2023. Coming up, Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Huge night for Democrats all across the country, from Ohio to Pennsylvania to Virginia. You name it, they defeated Republicans, and abortion was a huge topic. The question is, how does this help President Joe Biden going into 2024? Are Democrats realizing that if they run on the issues and drive their voters to the polls, they can actually win? We got extensive coverage on tonight's show, folks, breaking all of this down. It is time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling.
Republicans nationwide are scratching their heads today trying to figure out what the hell happened. They thought they were going to do well all across the country. That is not the case. From Virginia to Pennsylvania to Kentucky to New York State and other places, Republicans had an awful night as Democrats racked up wins left and right. No bigger place than in Virginia, where Democrats not only held the state Senate, they now control the House as well. This means that Delegate Don Scott will become Virginia's first black Speaker of the House. All of this, folks, the backdrop of Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin, who was campaigning saying, we're going to take control of the Senate and the House, and then we're going to ban abortion in Virginia. That was a huge issue that was on the ballot. And guess what? He looks real crazy now. All the talk about Youngkin being a surprise candidate for president in 2024, that just went out the window. And so now the question is, how do they regroup? But also, when you look at the other results, the abortion rights being protected in the Ohio Constitution, passing legalized marijuana in Ohio as well. Andy Beshear in Kentucky, the Democratic incumbent, beating black Republican Daniel Cameron by a wide margin. Folks, it was win after win after win. The one place Democrats really wanted to secure a win was in Mississippi, where Brandon Presley lost to incumbent Republican Governor Tate Reeves. We're going to break this thing down. Lots of folks we're going to be talking to. Shontel Brown, Congresswoman from Ohio. Reverend William J. Barber, we'll be talking to him as well, and so many others. But let's start with my panel. Robert Patillo, host, People, Passion, Politics, News and Talk 1380 WAOK out of Atlanta. Rebecca Carruthers, Vice President, Fair Election Center, Washington, D.C. Joe Richardson, Civil Rights Attorney, Los Angeles, California. I dare say, Rebecca, I'll start with you. Republicans not doing well. In fact, it was so funny. I got one of those emails that you always get from these campaigns, and it was so funny. Came in this afternoon. It was from Ronna McDaniel, who, of course, who is the Republican chair. I could not help but laugh when I got it because the subject line said, "Are you okay?" And that's why I had to tweet, Ronna, are you okay today?
Well, Ronna Romney McDaniel, let's not forget that when she dropped the Romney after Donald Trump called out her relative, Mitch Romney. So here's the thing. Abortion was on the ballot last night in many of the states, but it played out differently depending on if it was a mid-Atlantic southern state like Virginia versus a deep south southern state like Mississippi. What's really interesting, Republicans have painted themselves as the small government party, but to get involved in women's reproductive choices isn't a small government thing. So it was really interesting watching Republicans fight with their traditional, quote unquote, small government party, but then having to balance it with evangelicals. So I think what we saw last night is what 2024 is going to look like, with the Republican Party trying to figure out which direction it's going to go in, if it's going to lean into conservative evangelicals, or if it's going to go back to the traditional tenets of the Republican Party the way it's been in the last 50 years. I'm really curious to see how they're going to regroup. I'm curious to see if their strategy is going to be leaked next week when they have their post-mortem to figure out what went wrong, when Republicans should already know going into last night what was going to go wrong, because they went too far on abortion rights in this country and voters aren't having it.
Well, look, one of the things that they did, Robert, was they kept saying that we want to leave it up to the states. Okay, there you go. Leave it up to the states. Now they're having to contend with that because not only is it impacting statewide referendums, we saw it last year in Michigan. We see it in Ohio. Now we're seeing it impact their candidates.
Earlier this week when the polls came out saying that Joe Biden was losing to Donald Trump, I told people not to worry about it for one reason, that Republicans are continuing to run on this MAGA agenda. And what we've seen over the course of the last decade at this point in time is that it's an unwinnable agenda. There's an agenda that Donald Trump won on in 2016, and then the Republicans lost in all the special elections in 2017. Then they lost the House in 2018. Then they lost all the other elections in 2019. Then they lost the White House in 2020. Then they lost all these special elections and referendums in 2021. Then they lost the red wave in 2022. And now they're losing again in 2023. We're seeing nationwide this MAGA agenda is a losing agenda. It has nothing but a trail of destruction behind it for the Republican Party. And they're going to have to determine with Donald Trump being up 50 points against the other Republican candidates. And they're basically debating tonight for no apparent reason because he's going to be the nominee. What is this going to do to their party going forward? Will they actually attempt to be an actual governing party or simply a party that kowtows to the needs and the whims of Donald Trump? They knew beforehand that the abortion issue was going to be a losing issue in Ohio. They knew this earlier this year when the voters decided that they were not going to approve the ballot initiative that would have made it more difficult for them to change the Constitution. They knew in Virginia that Glenn Youngkin was wrong on these issues and that the voters were not simply going to be motivated by crazy conservative parents raiding schools, talking about school choice to switch the Senate and the House back to them. Glenn Youngkin won that seat as governor because the Democratic Party in Virginia decided to screw over Justin Fairfax and put in Terry McAuliffe, a throwback to the 90s. And that's why Glenn Youngkin has that seat right now. Not because there was a mandate from voters, not because he swept in with new ideas, but simply because Democrats shot themselves in the foot. And the Republicans are going to have to do some real soul searching to figure out what can they do to break away from this extreme MAGA agenda and come back to being an actual governing party. Because at the end of the day, about 30% of the country loves Donald Trump no matter what he does. The other 70% of the country votes against him every single election, and they want to win. They're going to have to find out how to come back to the center and really push forward policies that the majority of American people push forward. And I ask this question, what is their constituency right now? African Americans are not breaking for Republicans because they keep people like Tommy Tuberville and Marjorie Taylor Greene around. Women aren't breaking for Republicans because they're against their fundamental rights and their fundamental choices. Gay people clearly aren't going to be voting for Republicans. Young people aren't voting for Republicans because Vivek Ramaswamy wants to raise the age to vote to 25 years old. Old people aren't voting for Republicans because they keep making fun of Joe Biden for being old. Where exactly do they plan on getting their votes from? And they're going to have to figure that out pretty soon.
I got a big kick out of this last night, Joe. This was Sean Hannity just foaming at the mouth, just befuddled by what happened. Watch this.
Trying to scare women into thinking Republicans don't want abortion legal under any circumstances. And I go, but Democrats are trying to scare women into thinking Republicans don't want abortion legal under any circumstances. And
okay. Here's the problem, Joe. They don't. They literally are talking about a national ban. They've been saying that. Mike Pence was saying that. Today, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is saying the exact same thing. Democrats aren't scaring women into this. They're stating facts.
Yeah, they're stating facts. They're telling them the truth. I mean, really, this is the caboose on a very, very long train, except the train is continuing to go. Go back 30 years ago, Scalia was out of the mainstream. Reagan appointed folks who were out of the mainstream. Bush appointed folks who were out of the mainstream. Clarence Thomas was out of the mainstream. Clarence Thomas still is out of the mainstream. And so now Antonin Scalia dies, and then you've got Gorsuch, you've got Amy Coney Barrett. The only reason they were appointed by Trump was to get rid of abortion. This has been their goal the entire time, and to be able to do that once they've done it, now they don't want to own it. You hear all of their people talking about, this is something that doesn't affect a whole lot of people. They literally want to change the subject. So it's hard when you have to run around issues as opposed to running on issues. And so many times, to Robert's point, so many times when they won elections, Youngkin, in Virginia and other places, it was because of who the Democrats put up, things that the Democrats didn't do in boxes they didn't check, and not coming out and showing up to vote. And so once they overturned Roe with people that were unelected, they thought they were going for the gusto, and they've been suffering consequences ever since. So hopefully the Democrats have a template, because they did say, let's just leave it to the states. No, They're going for the gusto. Thomas wants to undo half of the things that got passed in the last 4 or 5 years or 10 years, including gay marriage. And there are plenty of them that want to go for the gusto and do a national abortion ban. And so they need to own that and deal with that, and we'll just turn people out to vote.
I found this to be interesting. We're going to break this thing down. We'll go to the break. We're going to come back, talk about this here, and we'll look at some exit polling data. I'll explain that when we come back. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Folks, we're talking about last night's election. Huge wins for Democrats. Republicans are now trying to figure out, man, is Trump going to be our saving grace? But a lot of people still don't like him as well. So there's a lot we're going to unpack right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, inflation is on the rise. Interest rates are high. Can you still thrive during these uncertain times? On the next Get Wealthy, you're gonna meet a woman who's done just that, living proof of what you need to do to flourish during these uncertain times.
These are times where you take advantage of what's going on. This is how people get rich or richer.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're breaking down last night's election. Saw this stat here, found it to be quite interesting, Robert. Exit polling data out of Ohio. Black men are most in favor of abortion rights, even more than white and black women. White men are most against abortion. That would surprise a lot of people that black men have a much larger view of this issue than white women and black women. Last night, of course, voters in Ohio put this issue, they placed it in abortion rights, reproductive rights in the Ohio Constitution. This is how it ended up being. The conservatives got crushed on this one. Come on, guys. So here's the deal. Yes, 2.18 million folks, 56%. No, 1.6 million, 43%. A total of 3.8 million votes were cast. The thing that's wild here, Robert, is that Republicans did everything they could to stop folks from voting on this. They did not want this. And even after this, the Speaker of the House goes, well, we're going to still find ways to protect a woman, first of all, to get rid of abortion. Dude, they now put it in the Constitution. You're going to have a little difficulty now.
You're right, and look, this is one of the points I think is very important to make, because there has been, for some reason, this smear against black male voters over the course of about the last decade that somehow we don't defend black women's rights electorally. It started around the Doug Jones election in Alabama, where there was this idea that there was a schism between black men and black women on many of these electoral issues. Groups used that for fundraising. They used it to push down black voter turnout in various elections. Black men and black women are in lockstep on most political issues, particularly on this issue of life. One of the issues that I hear from many black male voters on radio and in other places is that they want more control when it comes to reproductive issues. They want more of them focus on child support and child care and equal rights for fathers, etc. That doesn't mean they want fewer rights for women. They just want more of their rights to be respected and actually be part of the political agenda. And I think that the fear that many people have, both on the left and the right of American politics, is a united front coming from black voters, because a united front coming from black voters on these issues means that we're able to hit with a closed fist instead of an open hand when it comes to political issues. And the more that we are walking lockstep on these issues, the more that we can push forward on things such as women's reproductive rights, on criminal justice reform, on economic opportunities. All the things that we need within our portfolio require us to be working together, and we can't let outside groups work to try to separate us electorally.
If you want to hear something unbelievably stupid, Rebecca, it is stuck on stupid himself, Rick Santorum. Last night on Newsmax, remember he got fired from CNN. They enshrine reproductive rights in the Constitution. They also legalized marijuana in Ohio. And poor little Rick Santorum is just besides himself. He's beside himself, Rebecca, that people actually have the audacity to state what they wanted. Listen to this.
And you put very sexy things like abortion and marijuana on the ballot, and a lot of young people come out and vote. It was a secret sauce for disaster in Ohio. I don't know what they were thinking, but that's why I thank goodness that most of the states in this country don't allow you to put everything on the ballot, because pure democracies are not the way to run a country.
So then you're.
And
wow. Pure democracies are not the way to run a country. So damn you people for stating your opinion. We get to tell y'all how you should actually think and believe.
Well, Rick Santorum, you're really going to hate Ohio next year, because guess what's coming to the ballot next year? It's the right to actually have fair maps. And guess what? Young people, old people, everyone in between is going to come out and vote. They're going to decide if they want to keep having extreme gerrymandered political districts in Ohio, or if they want maps to be fair and representative of the people who live, work, and play in Ohio. So that's what's coming up next, Rick. So sorry to tell you that. But here's the other thing. Issue one was even more than just abortion rights. Issue one was the right for women after having a miscarriage to actually have proper medical treatment. It was also for people in Ohio to have consistent and safe access to family planning needs. So not just having an abortion, but also the right to have access to birth control. And so those are the things that issue one dealt with. And then issue two dealt with, let's figure out fairness. We had so many people locked up in this country because of marijuana possession. And guess what? This country is now saying, hey, it doesn't make sense for marijuana to be criminalized. We need the federal government to act on it. But guess what? State by state, states get to decide if they want marijuana to be used for medicinal use as well as recreational use. So Rick Santorum, guess what? People get a vote. That's what democracy is about. Democracy is about having free and fair elections, and also about participation. So last night we saw a series of free and fair elections across 29 states, and we saw people show up and participate, including young people. After all, we should want young people to engage and be active civic citizens in this country.
Damn those young people. Joining us right now, Prentice Haney, co-executive director, Ohio Organizing Collaborative. That was very much involved in this effort. Prentice, you had to get a kick out of Santorum, like, damn it, how dare those people in Ohio, those young people and other people actually vote on stuff that they care about?
Well, let me say this. Only losers and cheaters are scared of free and fair elections. You know, in Ohio, Like we just said, young people and black folks are not sitting on the sideline. What we saw last night was a sleeping giant that rose up and fought for their rights. 83% of black voters voted for issue 1, and then around the same amount voted for issue 2. What's so exciting is that we live in a democracy where people like me, black folks, are pushing the envelope every single day to make sure that we have access to the ballot. We just wasn't that long ago, 60 years ago, that many of us didn't have full enfranchisement, and still many of us don't today. But in our organization, we have formerly incarcerated persons, child care workers, we have parents, teachers, people of faith, students, all black folks who are coming together, and they made sure that issue 1 passed and issue 2 passed, because guess what? The people of Ohio is not the same as the electorate of Ohio. The electorate is something that people like to cheat and lose and steal because they don't like democracy. But guess what? Organizations like the OOC and black folks go out and build an electorate where young people get to exercise their right to vote, where they get to go out and make sure that they actually practice democracy together. And when you build an electorate, you can win. Listen, we're not scared of having an expanded electorate, because when you have an expanded electorate, people get to raise their voice, and that's what makes our democracy way more safe and deliver real things for our community.
Folks, pull up the vote totals for the Ohio referendum. That obviously was a huge deal. Again, that was, so actually when I said it earlier, that was the, I thought that was the abortion vote. This was the marijuana making it legal. Again, 2.1 million, 1.6 no, almost 57%. That's what we call an overwhelmingly mandate, Prentice.
Exactly, an overwhelming mandate. This is what I'm saying. Listen, we know that legalizing marijuana, legalizing your own reproductive health, these sort of issues are very popular issues among black voters and amongst all Ohioans. It's just so exciting that back in August, black folks and young folks in all Ohioans defended our right to our democracy, direct democracy. I can't believe someone said there's a pure democracy. Listen, democracy has never been pure because it's never been something that could work for all of us. We are the ones making our democracy work for all of us. And last night, what we saw is that people who fought to make sure that the ballot was open, that there was access, got over all the barriers of strict voter laws, unfair maps, purge voters. They made sure their voices were heard, and then they can see that when you go out and you vote on issues that matter to you, you don't have to wait for politicians to deliver what you need. You can get access to abortions. You can get legalization of marijuana for yourself. That's what black voters showed that they'll do in Ohio, and they're going to do it again in 24.
So, all right, so now legalized. So what does that actually mean?
What that actually means is that for about a decade, many black voters in Ohio have been disenfranchised and disinvested in. When you don't focus on an electorate for over a decade, then they don't show up. But what we saw this year is that there was real investment from our organization, from campaigns talking to black voters about why these issues matter to them. If we look at the leadership of the abortion ballot, we look at the leadership of the democracy ballot, we see black faces, we see Legacy Civil Rights, NAACP, Ohio Unity Coalition, APRI. We see groups that look like us at the center of them. It's not by chance that on election night, we now see victories that have overwhelming majorities with black folks supporting it. You cannot win something if you don't have us in leadership and you don't have programs that's catered to us. We've run programs, and we talked about this last year. This is not new. We've run programs for young black voters, for cynical black voters, for voters of faith. You have to make sure that you cater a program to each of the different types of values and ideologies of black voters, and then you could create a path for us to go out and win. And so I think, based on last night, we just saw the beginning of that wave in Ohio. And next year, we're going to see even more of that as more black voters come out and actually raise their voices and show that their political power does matter and make a difference in the state.
All right, then. Prentice, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. This, again, it's sort of driving the GOP mad, and which is interesting because former Republican Speaker of the House, John Boehner, is now, at least we know it's really because of money, he's now on the side of cannabis, correct?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
You couldn't hear me there? Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying, but
Prentice, can you hear me now? Can you? All right, so not sure why you can't hear me. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot. So, Joe, here's what I think is interesting. Again, John Boehner is now working on the side of cannabis.
Yeah, Boehner and got pragmatic too. It's interesting. Well, once the party threw him away, chased him out of being in the speakership, he supported Biden 3 years ago. There were some changes afoot even for his life. And then there's probably some kind of incentive, related to that. But at the end of the day, the worst thing that the Republicans can do is to create these issues that, this whole abortion thing was created by the overreach of the Supreme Court. It was created by that. And really, for as good, however I might feel about, the Democratic candidates and, over the years on the national elections, Biden wasn't the greatest candidate. Biden didn't win a primary until the third time he ran, once Jim Clyburn and people my age decided that Bernie Sanders wasn't going to be the guy. See, that's when it changed. And so when you have the wrong candidates on the other side, when there's overreach on the other side, they create an open door. That's what they've done, and they continue to do that. And so even the John Boehners of the world that are pretty conservative get pragmatic, maybe because they see the benefit to that, the benefit that can come to the state. I don't know if he has any personal deals related to any of that or whatever that might be. Hopefully it would be legal, of course. But it makes folks pragmatic because at the end of the day, it makes common sense to not have the law focused on undoing a bunch of folks that are getting long prison terms related to marijuana, something that makes you want to sleep and make you hungry, but not necessarily is going to lead to a whole lot of other things. We have to make a decision on limited resources, what we're going to actually do. And so these are issues that are unifying issues, particularly for young people. And young people, when they come out and vote, they vote overwhelmingly Democratic.
I just think it's just really interesting when you look at across the board. There was this prevailing viewpoint that, oh my God, if you look at the poll numbers and this is going to be awful for Biden, things along those lines. One, Democrats are so good at whining, complaining, teeth gnashing, as opposed to focusing. First of all, locking down your people and going to work. We're going to break down what happened in Virginia next. And again, that's what that was about. They took control of the House because they didn't just, we'll see what happens. No, they went out, raised the money, recruited candidates, ran the candidates, and that's how they now control the House of Delegates there. And so we'll discuss that next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network as we examine last night elections all across the country. Back in a moment.
Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Before I went to the break, I talked about Democrats having to put their head down, focus on their base. And that's really, really how you win elections. A lot of people, obviously, last night, it was laughable for me. Just pull up the panel. It was laughable for me last night, Joe, to watch. I was in Dallas last night. I don't watch CNN voluntarily. My dad happened to be, he was flipping through and watching it. And my God, it was absolutely boring watching them. It was just boring. And what was driving me crazy watching all of these people, that they act as if abortion was the only issue all across the country. And it wasn't. Take, for example, the Kentucky governor's race. Now, was it a major issue? Yes. Was it the only issue? No. So Andy Beshear, the Democrat incumbent, he beat Republican Daniel Cameron last night. But here's the whole deal. Cameron got outperformed by other Republicans. So they didn't want the black guy in Kentucky. The thing that was also interesting, guys, come on, pull it up. Guys, we're moving way too slow. Let's go. Here's the whole deal. I mean, you're sitting here talking about this race, and yes, abortion was an issue. Abortion rights, reproductive rights was an issue. But this is Beshear, who also provided voting opportunities for formerly incarcerated. Health care was on the ballot. A number of issues were on the ballot. And so I think it's a mistake when I watch all these these mainstream white networks where they think abortion is the only issue. It's not. You have to make a compelling argument on a variety of issues to get people to turn out to support you.
Yeah, I guess as it turns out, it's not enough to be a Black Republican with, that's the nephew-in-law of the leader of the Senate. Actually, you really do have to connect to the issues. And of course, as the advertisement said, all skin folks ain't kin folks. And so he didn't have a whole lot of Black voters. He needed some Black voters. Andy Beshear did an excellent job at seizing on what the issues actually are. And I think that he connected with those issues, including healthcare. Healthcare is everywhere. Being able to do the Medicaid expansion, being able to let folks know. I think that he is a good example of how to make sure that you connect with your voters, grow the electorate, and move us along in a way that gets more people to the polls and people understand what's at stake and understand what's actually important. He did an excellent job at that. there is an argument, we'll have to see how that goes, that, you know, a lot of Democratic folks that were running for office are a little bit more popular than Joe Biden is. I don't know if that's necessarily going to necessarily pan out, that that's actually the case, but you're running on issues of things that Biden has accomplished and things that you're a part of. And once you really see how that touches your life and you get people to the polls, then you can win. I think Bashir showed that. And I think we have to look and remember, it's not that even before abortion, we Democrats connect, frankly, to most bread and butter, regular folk issues. That's always been the case. That's never changed. It's still the case. We have to continue to connect the dots and let them understand that, and let them understand that we were the ones that passed Obamacare, which was, you know, passed as a term, passed along as a term that was supposed to be negative. You know, we are the ones that are dealing with these things. Look at what's happening with the unions and the big three. Those are Democratic bread and butter issues. And so we have to continue, use that example, use that as a template to make sure that we're connecting with voters and reminding them of who we are, reminding them who is it that actually is helping regular people. And it's going to be Democrats.
Robert, Daniel Cameron paid a huge price for his shameful actions when it came to the Breonna Taylor case. This is the Louisville Courier-Journal. They listed 5 takeaways. And they talked about how Andy Bashir expanded the Democrats' he only won by 5,000 votes 4 years ago, how he won in rural places, how he won in the suburban places, but also how he was successful in Louisville. Look, black turnout was a huge issue. That was an issue there. Come on, guys, go to the iPad. Thank you. You see right here, it says, Bashir took 72% of the vote in Jefferson County, Louisville, where the Taylor case unfolded, after winning 67% of the vote in 2019. And again, this is where Until Freedom, Poor People's Campaign, others, they put that pressure, and black folks said, we're going to make this fool pay for what he did in the Breonna Taylor case, and they sure did.
I think that's what the mainstream media, for the most part, is not giving enough attention to. You know, of course, the media has an agenda in these cases. They want to make sure that abortion is the #1 issue because there's special interest behind that. But we cannot ignore the fact that criminal justice reform, the treatment of black and brown people, and this movement for black lives was also crucial in this election. Very much Bashir's margin in this election was far larger because of the levels of black turnout that we were seeing. And for my black conservative friends, I tell you guys this all the time. Don't believe these people when they come to you and say, we're going to support you. Don't believe them when they say all you have to do is sell out and do what we say to do. We're going to put money behind you. We'll get behind you in campaign. They never come through at the end of the day. And I think that Daniel Cameron had actually decided when he was dealing with the Breonna Taylor situation to come out strongly, the same way that we saw Keith Ellison do in the George Floyd case. You would have seen a very, very split electorate. You would have had some people in that Louisville area that would have supported him because of that and that alone, and that may have actually bridged that gap. He was going to lose conservative support because of it. He would have gained additional support. So stop listening to these political consultants that tell you that just run on this MAGA agenda, this run to the far right of the electoral process, because at the end of the day, back in those backwoods of Kentucky, those good old boy MAGAs running, flying the Confederate flag, are not going to vote for you. They do not care about your policy, do not care about your party. It's a skin color issue. And if you want to make up that difference, that margin to actually be able to win, you need to build those coalitions to be more of a centrist candidate, and that's what doomed Cameron, and that potentially what doomed his political career going forward.
Well, he also learned a valuable lesson. You can get Trump's endorsement, but Trump didn't give a damn about him. Trump didn't even come to the state to campaign for him. The Courier-Journal says Trump had a tele-rally for Cameron on Monday and put out a 2-minute video last week reaffirming his endorsement of Cameron. Daniel Cameron sat there, Rebecca, and he was all in with Donald Trump. And that's where one of his mistakes was, because he thought that was going to put him over the hump. No, player, you got played.
To continue with what Robert said, when you are a conservative candidate, if you sell out your Blackness, and Blackness isn't just sold out on issues, but it's when you are inauthentic to your Black experience, the Black experience, and you run away from that, white voters do not respect that. There's nothing you could do to not be Black as a Black conservative. So you need to just accept that you are Black. And that's fine. That's okay. Come on over. I love being Black. The issue with Daniel Cameron is he was very inauthentic. And for him to sit and stand and tell the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, even tell the people of the United States that it was perfectly acceptable to not push forward and take those officers to trial, even though that grand jury said, hey, there is enough here to do something to move forward on this. For him to ignore that and to ignore the travesty of what happened with Breonna Taylor is shame on him. And guess what? The voters showed up and they said, shame on you, Daniel Cameron, we will not support you. So that's what we saw that happened last night. What's interesting with talking about mainstream media and like some of those other networks, by them focusing so much on abortion as the voting issue, what they don't understand, even if it's a state where abortion is one of the top 3 issues, it still plays out differently. It depends on the region of this country with how abortion plays out. When we talk about Mississippi later, comparing it to Virginia with how abortion showed up, one thing that we have to look at is the economic impact, and those who are economically impacted by not having abortion, but without who have an economic impact when it deals with abortion access. But in Kentucky, that isn't what the number one voting issue was for folks. And last night, we see that one of the top voting issues is criminal justice reform, is figuring out what do we do with law enforcement that's acting rogue. And what we're seeing is Black voters are saying, hey, pay attention because we will show up and we will vote on this issue. So shout out to Tamika Mallory, Until Freedom, and some of the other groups that decided to stay on the ground to organize the last 3.5 years and make this a top voting issue for Black communities in Kentucky.
You know, the thing here, Joe, that people have to understand, we start talking about different states. Rebecca makes a great point. You have to understand the makeup of the state. So, for instance, Kentucky does not have a significant Black population. It is a red state. All the other Republicans running statewide in Kentucky won by double digits. Voters there, they like Bashir. And so what you have to do is understand and study how does that happen? What is it about him? What was he saying that they actually liked and they voted for, but they rejected all the other Democrats? You look at in Mississippi, same way. 2.5 million people. You have 38% of the population African American, yet 15% of the Black folks in Mississippi cannot vote because of their laws when it comes to having a felony conviction. But last night we saw, this is the 3rd straight election the Democratic candidate got about 47% of the vote. They seem not being able to get over that hurdle. Jackson obviously is a Democratic stronghold, but along the Gulf Coast, they got crushed. So last night, Brandon Presley ran a great race. He did everything right. He raised lots of money. He actually outraised Tate Reeves, but the reality is Tate Reeves still won. There still are a lot of votes that have to be counted, but the reality is Reeves won. But when you look at a place like that is one of those places where no matter how broke those white folks are, no matter how bad their health care is, no matter how bad their education is, no matter how bad the jobs are there, no matter how bad the wages are in Mississippi, they are just simply hardcore Republicans. And so, Democrats, what they're going to have to do, they're going to have to really go old school, like SNCC, like CORE, go into places like that, and really spend year-round trying to flip vote. First of all, trying to maximize Black voter turnout, trying to reach those poor white voters as well, because they seem to not be able to get over that 47% number.
Yeah, so you've got this education component. I think Stacey Abrams is a great example of how to have a long-term relationship with voters that starts off with education and brings them along, and start off with them younger, as young as possible. It is interesting. If you look at it, there's this irony. Now, you had Brashear, one who was an incumbent, and you had the governor of Mississippi, one who was an incumbent. But if you look at Brashear and how much black votes helped him, even though there weren't as many of them to mine, that means that he was very, very successful in mining the black voters, okay? Certainly helped by the Breonna Taylor issue, but he was good at making that connection and mining those voters. In Mississippi, Presley needed to be able to have more voters, right? So there's this issue with the criminal justice system and being able to undo some of that, which is probably a little bit tougher in Mississippi for a lot of reasons. But even then, there were a lot of black votes available that he did not get. Okay. And so we really have to have long-term relationships from state to state that start off with education and bringing folks along, connecting them to the issues that are important to them, and really doing the diagnosis and really doing the post-election work so that we understand why Brashear worked, how much of it was his personality, how much were the issues, where those black voters actually were, et cetera. And are there more black voters there that can be mined in rural areas and other areas? Take that, make a comparison between that part of the country. To Rebecca's point, there are some differences in different parts of the country, so that you absolutely understand what the secret sauce is to educate voters, to bring them along, connect them to what their issues actually are that meet them where they are, and do it long term, so that over the course of several elections, Mississippi, the potential is there. The numbers are actually there now, and they will continue to be, particularly in a country, in a state that's so black, 37, 38%, whatever it is. There's a lot of potential there, and a big part of it is not accepting the suggestion that because you're in Mississippi, because you're in Alabama, because you're in fill in the blank southern state, you cannot win. Until Brashear won 4 years ago, we thought we couldn't win in Kentucky either. But he's finding a way to do it, even though it's not going down ballot. So we have to make sure that we do a diagnosis and figure out what actually helps to connect with these voters, and of course, educate from the very, very beginning and early on, and go that way.
Robert, look, at the end of the day, I think when you talk about politics, so many people, they only focus on the political season. If you're in Mississippi and you see that you're stuck on 47%, then what you have to then do is truly go in, look at the numbers and say, we got to go figure out how to pick up another 45 to 50,000 votes. We figure that out, then we can win. Republicans have control the governor's mansion there 31 of the last 35 years. They have a firm grip on the legislature as well. But again, do I believe that it's impossible? No. Look, Republicans control every statewide office in Texas, but the bottom line is you've got 900,000 black people in Texas who didn't vote. You had 75% of voters 30 and under in Texas in 2022 who did not vote. You got 2 million eligible but unregistered Latinos in Texas. Texas is 61% minority, yet the people who vote in Texas, 61%, they are white. So what it requires is going to require these billionaires in the Democratic Party to literally say, we're going to have to grind this thing out and go through the slog and do that hard work, going town to town, door to door. And it may take you 2, 4, 6, 8 years, but you can't just only focus on it during the election year.
Look, Roland, this is one of the problems with the Democratic establishment. In the last 6 months or so, Donald Trump has been convicted of or found liable for raping Eugene Carroll. He's been found guilty of $2.5 million in fraud from Trump University, $2.5 million in fraud from the Trump Foundation, $25 million in fraud from Trump University. He's facing $250 million in fraud in the current case that he's facing. He has 91 felony counts around the country. He was impeached twice, and we've seen about 3 Republicans call on him to step down and drop out of the race. President Biden had one bad poll. And David Axelrod and all the other Democratic establishments are saying, well, let's throw Granddaddy out the house because he's going to lose. This is just the way that Democrats react to things. Democrats are the most scared group of political people that I've ever seen. In a state like Mississippi, you have to understand who your electorate is. It's black people. There are over 100,000 unregistered black voters, or eligible unregistered black voters in the state of Mississippi. You turn them out, you get them registered, you turn them out at Obama 2012 levels, then you can win back. You can make up that 50,000 vote gap that exists there. And when you think about the rhetoric that we have in this country around politics, we have Democrats who want 95% of the black vote, but they are afraid to talk about black issues in any kind of candid way. A decade ago, you could not talk about being pro-abortion in America. You'd have to use all kinds of euphemism, women's rights, women's reproductive health, pro-choice, all these other things. And in 2023, you can just say, I am pro-abortion, and that is fine in American politics. We have to bridge that Rubicon and be able to do the exact same thing for black issues if you want to turn out black folks in those numbers. If you want to get black folks out, you have to run on a strong black agenda that gets those 100,000 people who are not registered. And then after they're registered, you have to get them to the polls. You need to be talking about strong criminal justice reform. You have to talk about pardoning the victims of mass incarceration. You have to talk about direct economic benefits for black folks. You have to talk about reparations on the state level in a state like Mississippi. That's what gets people turned out.
All right, hold tight 1 second. We come back. We're going to talk to Congresswoman Shontel Brown about what happened in Ohio. And even though they lost big, boy, Republicans are still saying, well, that really wasn't the intent of what happened last night. Dog, y'all lost. They do not like taking L's. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr, we welcome the Black Star Network's very own Roland Martin, who joins us to talk about his new book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. The book explains so much about what we're going through in this country right now, and how, as white people head toward becoming a racial minority, it's going to get, well, let's just say, even more interesting.
We are going to see more violence. We're going to see more vitriol, because as each day passes, it is a nail in that coffin.
The one and only Roland Martin on the next Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Last night, voters in Ohio affirmed in their constitution reproductive rights. Boy, Republicans in the state still are not happy. They've been doing everything they can to stop them. So 27 members of the Ohio legislature literally put out this press release, and it's quite confusing. They said, unlike the language of this proposal, we want to be very clear. The vague, intentionally deceptive language of issue 1 does not clarify the issues of life, parental consent, informed consent, or viability, including partial birth abortion, but rather introduces more confusion. This initiative failed to mention a single specific law. We will do everything in our power to prevent our laws from being removed based upon perception of intent. We were elected to protect the most vulnerable in our state. We will continue that work. Joining us right now, Congressman Shontel Brown of Ohio. Congresswoman, I gotta say, they can't take an L. They like, I mean, last I checked, they literally said we're going to put the right to reproductive rights in the state constitution. They think they're bigger than the state constitution.
They do. We are, and thank you for having me, first of all, Roland. And Ohio had an incredible night. It was a big win for Ohioans, a big win for women, a big win for families. What it actually did do, in case there's some confusion around what the Republicans were trying to conjure up, is it restored the law of the land as it was when Roe versus Wade was the law of the land. It eliminated the extreme abortion ban that had no exceptions for rape or incest. And it also made it possible for doctors to provide emergency care for miscarriages without fear of the government interfering or being criminalized. And last but not least, that didn't get a lot of attention, was it maintained access to birth control pills, contraceptives. So that's what issue 1 was about. Now, the bottom line is, it keeps politicians and elected officials and the government out of the doctor's office and allows people to make their own personal medical healthcare decisions. That was it.
Well, one of the reasons why they are so obstinate is because of political gerrymandering. And they have been fighting that. Voters in the state made clear when it came to drawing the lines, they were kind of like, yeah, we don't care what y'all think. So guess what? That's now going to be on the ballot next year.
That's right. That's right. So Ohioans it's been a very gerrymandered state. As we can see from the results from last night's election, in the words of our former party chairman of the state, Ohio is more rigged than it is red. And that was demonstrative in the numbers as it relates to issue 1 and issue 2. There was a broad coalition of support when it comes to the freedoms that people are that are coming up on the ballot. People want the rights to make their own choices. And clearly right now, the Republicans are not about giving people their rights. They're about taking rights away, whether it is your right to maintain autonomy over your own body, the right to read certain books, the right to vote. They are all about stripping away rights, and they are really doing a relentless job of trying to turn back the hands of time.
So what you now are faced with, again, and this is what I keep trying to explain to people, is that we have to stop looking at elections as sort of a one-off. That you have to say, okay, you chipped away at this, now you got to come back next year and realize there's going to be another election. And so I keep saying to black folks, others, we cannot check out of the process. It has to be this sort of this relentless pursuit of democracy by saying, we're going to keep coming back, and if y'all are standing in the way, we're going to do all we can to vote you out.
That is exactly right. I think I would be remiss if I did not remind folks how we actually got to this place in Ohio. In 2016, we had one of the most qualified candidates running for president against one of the least qualified who ever applied for the office. And what happened was people got complacent. They thought, okay, she's got it in the bag. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to sit this election out. Some Democrats even bragged about voting for third-party candidates in protest. We do not have the ability to afford that, because what happened was we got President Trump, and what happened was he appointed not 1, not 2, but 3 Supreme Court justices to the bench who turned back the clock on what was almost 50 years of precedent as it related to Roe versus Wade, and he took extreme pride in that. So yes, we do not have the luxury of saying, okay, we won, we can sit down. We cannot afford it, especially right now, because just like when Roe versus Wade, the Dobbs decision came down, they were relentless about that. They continued to pursue and try to overturn Roe versus Wade for decades, and they were successful. And so that's how we got to where we were yesterday in Ohio, with having to restore those rights and enshrine them in our Constitution, because too many people sat out the election in 2016. It is a real live example of the expression when we say elections have consequences. We didn't feel that in 2017, 18, 19, 20, or even 21. But in 2022, the Dobbs decision came down because Trump had the ability to appoint, again, 3 MAGA extremists to the Supreme Court who made a decision to strip away women's rights to make their own health care decisions. So could not be more proud, grateful, and thankful for the volunteers and the voters who showed up and showed out yesterday to lead us to victory on issue 1.
Last question for you. Other day, I saw former Congressman Tim Ryan say that President Joe Biden needs to drop out of the presidential race. This is the same Tim Ryan, frankly, who did not campaign for black votes in Cleveland and Cincinnati when he ran for the United States Senate. And he can't say that I'm lying because I text him personally about those things, offered to come to the state, never accepted. And so what do you say to him and others who keep with this drumbeat, oh, Biden needs to drop out, when clearly he is not, he's running?
Listen, Tim Ryan, who is also a friend, a former colleague, knows that that's not how this thing works. But furthermore, let me say this. Your previous candidate said it very well. We had a bad poll, and there's only two ways to run in politics, and that's unopposed or scared. And yes, those numbers were actually frightening. But what we know about polls is polls don't vote. You might remember a certain candidate in 2021 was down by 35 points in a polling. So
who was that?
Not don't
be talking in the third person. Like, oh, a certain candidate. Now people at home going, who's she talking about? Yeah, when you ran against Nina Turner, early polls had Turner far ahead of you in the polls. But then when it was time for the poll of all polls, you won.
Yes. So the elections is the poll of all polls, and they actually deliver results. And polls have never been favorable for Joe Biden. As my sweetheart, Antoine Seawright likes to say, when they count Joe Biden out, he shows them that they don't know how to count. So listen, it is too early to predict the weather for next year. A poll is simply a snapshot in time. And so we have time to galvanize, mobilize, and educate our voters. And that's what we intend to do. And that's what we've been doing. And we're going to keep doing it. And I should say this also. Thank you for the privilege of this, allowing me to be on this platform, because it's awfully hard to get oxygen in this space to really detail the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration, as well as when the Democrats had the majority. We had one of the most productive Congresses, recreating jobs, delivering high-speed broadband internet at affordable prices, capping the price of insulin, the largest investment in our climate crisis. I could go on and on. The Veterans PACT Act that expanded benefits for veterans that were exposed to toxins and burn pits. I mean, we have done a lot, but I don't think people equate some of these successes to the Biden-Harris administration. We were on the campaign trail last year in South Carolina, and the lady was just talking about how her husband had gone from getting like 10 to 15% of his veterans benefit to 100%. Well, that was not a miraculous act of God. That was because we passed the Veterans PACT Act. So we have been doing a number of things that people just don't realize are a result of the Democratic majority that we held in the 117th Congress and the good work of President Biden-Harris. I mean, the largest investment towards our HBCUs, making history with putting the first Black woman in the vice presidential office, appointing more Black female judges to the federal courts than all presidents combined. All presidents combined. So we have been doing the work. We just got to get the message out, and we've got to connect the dots. So I would just encourage people to really stop and think about the choices that are going to be before them. You have a man that has been twice impeached, has over 91 indictments, who had a full-fledged Muslim ban on place when he came into office. And also, I think I recall him as suggesting we inject bleach during COVID to try to cure that. This man is not worthy of being back in the president's office. And I haven't even got to his efforts to have an insurrection and not have the peaceful transfer of power that we have become accustomed to in this country.
Well, I've said this since this show launched 5 years ago. We've had a standing invitation for all CBC members. If they want to come on, talk about things they're working on, they can come on. All they got to do is let us know. We reach out to folks all the time. And so that goes for you. That goes for all of them, because dating back to my TV One show, I understood that, look, these other networks are not calling Black Caucus members on a regular basis, even though they are the largest caucus on the Democratic side in the House. And so feel free. Want to come on and talk about something, let us know. That's what happens when you own it. You ain't got to ask nobody.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the privilege. Thank you for having me, and keep doing what you're doing, Mr. Martin. Your voice is so critical, so very important, and so valued. So thank you, and I will certainly accept that invitation. It's been a pleasure to be on, and I again thank you for the opportunity.
Now I'm rolling, Mr. Martin, my daddy. I'm rolling.
All right,
All right, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
The events too.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, so what you heard there, for our panel that Congresswoman Brown laid out, is the point. You have to, and this is what we talk about. You have to detail what you have actually done, and we've laid that out. The Biden-Harris team, they've now got a year to do that. The polls are giving you an indication. People are sort of leery where they stand. Now is when, Rebecca, now is when you get to work. Now you see where you are weak. You see where your tough spots are. And now you begin to attack it. I have been saying on this show, for me, one of the weaknesses in the Biden-Harris administration, I rarely see any black men being out here talking about the various issues. Got to get them out there. You've got to also, if you're driving the economy, I need to be seeing the Commerce Secretary. I need to be seeing the Treasury Secretary. I need to be seeing the brother who was the Assistant Treasury Secretary, the highest ranking African-American ever, Wally Adeyemo. I need to be seeing those folks. And again, I love talking to former Congresswoman Marsha Fudge, now Secretary of HUD. Love having her on, but that housing, that's one thing. They need to be sitting here laying out, we did this, and in specifics, because a lot of folk just don't know when checks have shown up, child care benefits, things along those lines. You have to put the work in on the issues.
Yes.
Rebecca. Go ahead.
Yes, and I want the Biden administration to also understand that last night is not a predictor of what's going to happen in 2024. Don't just think that abortion and those types of issues is what the Biden administration should spend the next 12 months talking about going into next November. But like you said, speaking specifically on the issues. And when you have black men out and talking about the accomplishments of this administration, I very much respect Congressman Clyburn, but it shouldn't be our elite black men in this country. It should be everyday black men who could talk about everyday issues. And the reason why I'm saying that is right now there is a vacuum for that. That's the reason why when you see Ice Cube talking about his agenda, it's the reason why it actually has air, because there is a vacuum and that voice is needed to talk about everyday issues that doesn't show up in a shiny Democratic Party package. So we need to see more of that going into next year, because the Biden administration absolutely need black men to be informed with what's going on, as well as engaged and then talking to one another. It's not good enough just to go to the barbershops. Unfortunately, a lot of my white colleagues who work in different campaigns seem to think that that is a cheat code all of a sudden. It is not a cheat code for you. If this is your first time in a barbershop, they ain't listening to you. So we need to see more everyday black men who are engaged, and that's something that the Biden administration has time to do in the next 12 months.
You know what? So, Joe, I'm sitting here. Charles Blow just put out this piece called "The Joe Biden Re-Election Dilemma." He says in here that Joe Biden should be far and away the favorite to win re-election in 2024. Can we please stop with this nonsense? Let me explain. We have had close elections. In close elections for the last several elections. Republicans have not been winning the popular vote. So we can go to 2020, 2016, 2012, 2008, 2004, 2000. I mean, we can look at the numbers, okay? And so we are a fractured country. We already know that when we talk about the election, really comes down to 5 or 6 states. Right now, we can say that the 2024 election, Florida is off the map. Democrats have been horrible there. Florida is no longer a battleground state. We can say Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Those 5. Now, I won't say Colorado. Not gonna say New Mexico. What'd you say, Rebecca?
Arizona,
North
Nevada.
Carolina. We still got to look at North Carolina.
Okay. Nah, no.
Is that Supreme Court race?
Okay. I'm not gonna put North Carolina in that column until Democrats actually start winning there. Okay. Biden barely lost there, but they've been losing in North Carolina. So that's why I'm not gonna. But I'm just gonna say it's 5 states. It's 5 states. Okay. Fine, Robert. You can put in Nevada. Okay. But the bottom line is, it's really 5 states. Okay. So the reality is, I'm not shocked by any of this. I'm not. I'm not shocked that people are saying, oh my God, I'm worse off, because I understand what has been happening. I've been listening to, I'm in group chats and I'm in other chats, and these people are walking around and like, oh my God, I'm not enthusiastic about Biden. Well, hell, it's a lot of people I ain't enthusiastic about. But I also am taking every time I look at Yank Uger, Yank is going off I'm like, dude, seriously, you're yelling and screaming. Guess what? You're yelling and screaming on Twitter ain't gonna solve jack. I'm like, Yank, guess what? Trump is gonna be the nominee. Biden is gonna be the nominee. It's some shit, just deal with it. Just deal with it. To me, this is sort of like going to the car dealership, and they come back and it's like, all right, your transmission, your engine, your lights. I could stand there and him and her. Guess what? Go ahead and get ready to pay that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Either you pay it or your ass taking Ubers all day. I mean, we can stand here and that means nothing. So I'm not one of these people like, oh my God, I wish Biden was 60. He ran when he was that age. He lost.
Right. Right.
He lost. And let me remind all of these people, because I am sick and tired of all of these Democrats bitching and moaning. Oh my God, he's going to be 82 if he gets reelected. Warren, Klobuchar, Harris, Booker, Buttigieg, Bloomberg. I know I'm leaving 2 or 3 people off. There's 6 people who were running in 2020. Sanders, that's 7. Nobody liked any of them. Right. If people liked them, they would have kept running. Harris didn't even make the primaries. They all began to drop out. So, and I'm serious, all you Sanders people, he fucking lost. He lost. I thought Gary Hart was an unbelievable candidate. Gary Hart was having an affair. Sorry. So at some point, you gotta wake up and go, okay, this is the hand I'm being dealt. Sure. Because Biden ain't getting younger. And when I say the hand that I'm being dealt, you can sit here and talk about Biden is, Biden that, Biden ain't done this. Can you argue against the infrastructure bill? Nope. Can you argue against the American Rescue Plan? Nope. Can you argue against the announcement now made regarding rails, generating 100,000 jobs? Nope. I could go on and on and on. So when I hear people say, like Bill Maher, yeah, he's done a great job, now sit down. I'm sorry, in what world do you say to the person who's done a great job, now sit down? Because we're stuck on this deal, oh, give me somebody young and vibrant who can excite me and who can lose. Because there were some young people. Yeah. Harris was younger. Booker was younger. Buttigieg was younger. Oh, I'm sorry, they didn't excite you enough? And so I'm sitting here going, hey, this is who is sitting in front of me. On the right is going to be an insurrectionist, lying, narcissistic, 4-time indicted, massive liar. Over here is the incumbent Joe Biden. Over here is the dude who picked 3 hardcore right-wing Supreme Court justices that got rid of Roe v. Wade, that got rid of affirmative action, and they're gonna sit here and allow people to sit here and carry guns. They took up a case that deals with the issue of people who commit domestic violence having guns. Waiting on that decision, okay? Over here, I got somebody who's appointed 150 federal judges, more black women to the appellate court than all other presidents combined, who's appointed civil rights lawyers, ACLU lawyers, directly from where they were all the way to the federal bench. Now, now hold up. So now,
all right.
so those are my choices. That's what's in front of me. And so I'm not sitting here going, oh my goodness, I'm not looking for Biden to go run a damn marathon. I don't need him to go surfing like Obama did. I don't need any of that. What I need is for some shit to get done. What I need is for him not to incite Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and flat out racists across the country to storm the U.S. Capitol, overthrow the election. What I need is not to see these crazy, deranged MAGA people who don't give a damn about civil rights, who do not give a damn about holding police officers accountable. That's what I want to deal with. So again, for all y'all folks who like, oh my God, I know, he's running. Deal with it. And people are like, well, you can't be scared of us. You shouldn't be trying to instill fear in us. Project 2025, Google it. Then you'll understand what the real fear is. That is what is getting on my damn nerves, Joe. And I need people to understand. Buckle up, man up, woman up, shut the fuck up, and focus on winning in November 2024 and defeat crazy, deranged, white nationalist, white supremacist, MAGA Donald Trump.
Well, what's interesting is not only in spite of, but because of everything that you said, it guarantees that elections will continue to be close. In 2000, if the election ended in Florida, but if Al Gore had won Tennessee, then Florida would not have been in play, would not have been determinative. 2004, the difference was Ohio and Ohio only. We know what happened in 2008. 2012, supposedly Barack Obama was behind, but he comes back. 2016, some folks stayed home. Even Donald Trump had the plane warmed up, didn't think he was going to win, thought he was going to get on the plane and be out, and we got lax. And so even in the best of times, you have a very, very divided electorate, and a lot of folks are going to vote sight unseen. And so therefore, it's about turning your folks out. Here's the good news. We can run on actual records. We don't have to hypothesize about what Donald Trump would or wouldn't do. Let's talk about what he actually did the last time he was in office. Let's remind folks of the debacle surrounding COVID and how many people died that didn't have to, and the fundamental instability in this country, and then compare what Donald Trump, who is just about as old as Biden, by the way, BTWIJS, as the kids say, let's compare what Donald Trump's judges did versus what Biden's judges are doing. And so run on records, actually talk about here's what we actually did and how it affects you. This is what he actually did. We don't have to hypothesize. Here's where we're going, assuming he's still on the street. So just run on records and inform people and remind people of the urgency of voting, because 2016 is a cautionary tale of what happens when we don't go vote.
I'm just tired of Democratic whining. I'm tired of it. Got to go to a break. We come back. Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, I know he's going to sit here and pray for me. Because sometimes, sometimes, y'all, I can explain stuff in a nice, wonderful way. But sometimes, Matter of fact, I don't know if y'all remember this here years ago. Matter of fact, I'm gonna tell this story on the upside of the break, and I'm Reverend Barber's gonna get a kick out of this one. It's a true story too about cussing and getting your point across. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Dee Barnes, and next on The Frequency, we have griot, performance artist and author, writer, singer, and composer, Queen Mother Nana Camille Yarborough. Please join us for an incredible conversation with knowledge, wisdom, and power of the elders.
I'm a perception changer. You're a rearranger. You're a mind evolver and a problem solver. You're a beast eater, a soul excreter, a void filler, and a bile spiller. You are a thought warmer, a plan former, a power orchestrator, and a tongue translator.
Right here on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, inflation is on the rise. Interest rates are high. Can you still thrive during these uncertain times? On the next Get Wealthy, you're gonna meet a woman who's done just that, living proof of what you need to do to flourish during these uncertain times.
These are times where you take advantage of what's going on. This is how people get rich or richer.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr, we welcome the Black Star Network's very own Roland Martin, who joins us to talk about his new book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. The book explains so much about what we're going through in this country right now, and how, as white people head toward becoming a racial minority, it's going to get, well, let's just say, even more interesting.
We are going to see more violence. We're going to see more vitriol, because as each day passes, it is a nail in that coffin.
The one and only Roland Martin on the next Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, joined right now by Reverend Dr. William Barber, Poor People's Campaign, Repairers of the Breach, joins us on the phone. Reverend Barber, years ago on Nightline, I was watching Nightline. It was hilarious. They had Ice-T and Dr. Alvin Poussaint on. And Ted Koppel said, Ice-T, what about the language in rap? And Ice-T said, well, you know, Ted, he said, black people are different from white people. He said, so our intentions are different. He said a white person will say, Johnny, put that knife down. Put that knife down, Johnny. He said a black person say, Johnny, put that goddamn knife down. He said, it's emphasis, Ted. And Ted Koppel goes, Dr. Poussaint, your thoughts? And Alvin Poussaint, Harvard, all that. He goes, well, you know, Ted, Ice-T got a point.
You damn all right, he got a point. And anybody that doesn't know there comes a time for harsh language and strong language doesn't read the prophets or Jesus. You know, when Jesus saw a fig tree producing, fronting like it was really a fig tree but not producing, he damned it. And, you know, the prophets would often say very straightforward things, different than cursing and profanity. And I hear you saying there's a frustration. Listen, how do you win in politics? You got to go get the votes. And it's two ways you go get votes. You either let people know what you have done, and then you let them know, if you give me another term, what I'm going to do. This is what I've done. This is what I'm going to do. You know, you talk about North Carolina. I want to issue one slight correction. Folk that lose in North Carolina lose when they don't run on issue. We've had a Democratic governor in North Carolina since 2016. How has he run? He's won 2 terms because when he ran and said, if you elect me, I'm going to do Medicaid expansion, I'm going to raise wages, I'm going to protect voting rights. When you run and you only run on law and order and stuff, run away from that, you lose in North Carolina. When the maps were fair 2 years ago, this last term, North Carolina went from 10-3 to 7-7. And poor and low wealth voters made this flip in those key races. We went from 10 Republicans to 3 Democrats to 7-7. How did Berkshire win? Don't let people tell you it was just abortion or not. Go back to 2018. In 2018, Berkshire, whose father, by the way, was governor, went to East Kentucky and in Louisville, Black Kentucky. He said, if you elect me, I'm gonna do felony reenfranchisement, for people who were had lost their voting rights. I'm going to do Medicaid expansion, and I'm going to raise the minimum wage. He said that. He ran that. He even said some things are not about Democrat versus Republican, left versus right, but right versus wrong. When the Poor People's Campaign was in the street and the current governor would try to block us, as Attorney General, Berkshire stood against that governor. He went to Eastern Kentucky and showed white folk in Eastern Kentucky, and he won counties. In fact, we were up there, and in 5 counties, 3 of them turned blue in 2018. If you look in Biden-Harris, people keep forgetting, how did they win? Well, they ran on living wages and Medicaid and voting rights. That's what they said they were going to do. And they need to talk about what they have done, but they also need to talk about what was blocked. And if they get elected, they get a Congress, what they will finish. I've been saying to them, stop just bringing celebrities and leaders like, myself or somebody to the White House. Bring poor and low wealth people to the White House. Yep. Whom your policies have lifted and impacted. Let them know what you've done, then tell them what you're going to do, and let them be your children, because there are 60 million, listen to this, Roland, there's 60 million poor and low wealth voters in this country. 27 million voted in the last election, 39 million didn't. There's not a state in this country where poor and low wealth voters don't make up at least 33% of the electorate. And in most states, if just 20% or less in those states would be mobilized, not 30, not 40, just 20%, around an agenda, whoever got those votes would win. So how in the hell can you really say you want to win if you're not just working hard for those votes, telling for what you've done, what the blocks were to what you wanted to do, and if you give me another term and the Congress I need, this is what we're going to get done. I don't know, for instance, why right now in the Senate isn't passing living wages, passing the Voting Rights Act. Let the House block it, but pass it so folk will know, if you give us the House and give us the presidency, we will get this done. And this is what we've already done, and this is what we'll do. And that's how people will be moved to the electorate. It's real simple. It's about, what's really people are facing in their lives. And lastly, Roland, we got to talk about life and death. Life is on the ballot. Poverty is the 4th leading cause of death in this country. If you're not addressing poverty and low wealth, you're not addressing people's lives. 350,000 people died during COVID from the lack of Medicaid expansion. The lack of health care. You're not saying what you're going to do about health care. You're not caring about people's lives. But if people know you care about their living, then they will move and vote for you and stand up and stand with you. That has to happen in this cycle.
Well, what you laid out, I think, is critically important, but it's also, when we're talking about being on the ground, we're talking about really focused. You and I talk all the time, and it's not this silly, normal, and I'm gonna say it, too many dadgum civil rights organizations want to have personality-driven rallies as opposed to educating people. When we were in Virginia, helping the Virginia House Democrats. After the 5 events we did, people would come up to me and they would say, well, man, what can we do? I said, because it was like alphas and it was deltas and AKAs and other. I said, listen, stop trying to cover the whole doggone area. I said, go pull the data, find out the 5 lowest voting precincts, and then each one of y'all members of the Divine Nine take 1 precinct. I said, take 1 precinct. I said, stop trying to do everything. I said, so if you take the 9, let's take the lowest 12, Divine Nine, Eastern Star, Prince Hall Mason, and the Links. Those 12 organizations, I said, just focus on 1. You may very well increase in that particular district anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 votes. And here's what people don't understand. Last night, even though the Democrats won the Virginia House last night. I went through the data, Reverend Barber, and what it showed is that when you start breaking down some of those numbers, they could have picked up an additional 4 or 5 seats, and they lost those seats, won by 173 votes, up us to 1,300. So if we focus on that, we can win elections, but this old school just get together and just make a bunch of noise. No, you got to grind this thing. You got to go touch the people. You got to talk to the people. You got to educate the people.
You can't go to them and say, well, vote because Harriet Tubman got away from slavery and vote because you got to show, first of all, have the agenda right. Push the candidates to talk about the things that really matter. You know, like in Mississippi, most people don't know that 80% of Mississippians wanted Medicaid expansion and living wage. If the governor when the candidates for governor started running on the last couple of weeks, what if that had been from the beginning? But even if he didn't, the organization should be going to the places where people are and pushing that. And you're right about numbers, so let's drill down. Because we've never seen an election where we've had the kind of massive turnout we want to. Even where we're seeing victories, the turnout is still far below what it could be. But if you know, for instance, if you know in Florida that there are 2.8 million poor low-wealth voters who did not vote in 2020, and the margin of victory was only 370,000 in the governor's race, then go where those 2 million poor low-wealth voters are and rally them around the issues. If you know in Georgia there were 1,076,000 poor low-wealth voters who did not vote, but the margin of victory wasn't but 12,000 votes. Go in those areas, find where they are, and move them on agenda. If you know in Kentucky that the 700,000 didn't vote in 2020, the margin of victory was only 500,000. In North Carolina, 1.1 million didn't vote. The margin of victory was only 70,000. So right there, you get a clear picture that we're not losing because we're losing. We're losing because folk are not focusing on and drilling down on where the voters are. So what we're going to be doing is in 30 state capitals in March the 2nd, we're having massive rallies to call people to vote around 7 issues in state capital. We're announcing 35 weeks of intentional focus on low-income voters who, when they voted maybe 2 elections ago, they voted progressive, but they have not voted since then. The number one reason that people say they don't vote is nobody talks to them. So we're going to have a massive campaign to talk to them all the way through the election. And every time we gather, we're going to be gathering around issues, but then the issues will drive who we go talk to. Targeting areas. And by the way, Mark Rowland, what we're doing in PPC and Repairs of the Breach is bringing folk together. We're bringing folk together in East Kentucky and in Louisville, in those pockets where people say, well, that's Trump country. No. Because even in those areas, if you close the margin by which an extremist wins, you help on the other side. You know, and so you've got to drill these numbers down. I don't know how many times I have tried to say it nice, say it cussing. The world, can you walk away from this many potential voters? And the number one reason that they don't vote is that nobody talks to them. Talk to the people, go where they are, pick the areas, and increase these margins. And victory for progressive and for civil rights, for justice, can happen. Look, even in the South, there's not a southern state. There's not one southern state. Y'all hear me on this? Where 20, if you move 20% of poor, low-income voters, 20%, that it would not fundamentally shift every electoral, every at-large election. That's why these folk are so hard on voter suppression. They are looking at these numbers. They know the Southern strategy has all kind of breaks and holes in it. And for the life of me, I don't understand sometimes why, as you say, folks are continuing to just do the old school, the celebrity-driven, just do a door knock, tell folk to vote because folk died for it in the past. No, tell them to vote because of how they need to live in the present and what's happening right now, and go target in those areas. But we can't be bougie now. We can't just go get the folk that normally go And you can't, after the election, when they put up, well, 90% of the black folk voted for a candidate. No, that's 90% of those who voted.
Right.
It's not 90% of our people. You got to know what's really going on. Read the numbers and go hard, go hard in the trenches and hard in the paint. And lastly, you've got to mobilize the folk in those communities that go hard. It's one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that if you're going in communities, you don't go in a community with people who never go in the community. You raise up and build leaders from within those indigenous communities so that they can become the ones who inspire others to move.
Well, that's why and I don't know why the White House keep playing game with this, but this is why they need to stop trying to just invite you, accept that invitation, bring poor affected people and have Biden meet with them. He can talk about his existing policies, but I'm tired of this whole deal where you only talk middle class, Scranton. No, it's a bunch of poor people. It's a bunch of poor working class people. People out here trying to make ends meet. They need a voice too, and they've been messing around for 3 years not wanting to have that meeting.
And they have a voice. 60.9% of black people are poor and or low wealth. That's 26 million people. 30% of white people, that's 66 million. What we have said to them is let us bring into the White House a diverse group of low income, poor people who actually support what you've tried to do. And with some more religious leaders, talk to them and let those people leave the White House and go out and tell the story. This is what has happened. This is how it has impacted us. This is what it's done to address poverty. But some people made it temporary. If we get out here and vote, we can put people in office who will make these things permanent. We can address 87 million people without health care. We were 2 votes, Marlon, 2 votes from 43% of Americans, 50 plus million Americans, and 43% of black people moving out of low wealth if the living wage bill had passed. We were 2 votes. 2 votes. Well, those are the people that need to have the mic. Those are the people you need to be talking to because those are the people that live and breathe and know how to move the sleeping giant in this country. Anybody in this election cycle, as close as these elections are, that is writing off 60 million poor and low wealth voters and not talking to them intentionally is a damn political fool. I'm just going to say it like that.
Right now, go to my iPad. The video we're showing right now is when we live stream when y'all were marching in West Virginia against Manchin. And this is what we're talking about. Look, the 2023 election is in the books. The focus now is on 2024. You're going to have primaries beginning the first of the year. You're going to have Democratic primaries, Republican primaries happening all throughout, gearing up for the general election. This is all hands on deck. This is where, and listen, I'm not freaking out by these early polls, and it's showing how people feel because they are a snapshot in time. What they should be doing is sort of be operating as like cold water on the face of these largely white Democratic progressive strategists who are going to be spending billions of dollars. And I'm talking about the environmental lobby. I'm talking about the pro-choice lobby. I'm talking about American Priorities PAC, the DNC, the DSCC, DCCC, Democratic Governors Association. All of these people, they had better understand that you're gloating now because you won, but you could be crying a year from now. You had better be putting the work in. I have been saying, Reverend Barber, because when you were into Kentucky, y'all said, this ain't no rally. We're going to be teaching y'all tonight. They should be sitting here talking about how are we having education town halls in critical towns, in cities, in battleground states, beginning in January. And I'll say this here right now to every black person, and I've already got several on the book. Don't come with them typical lame MLK programs and Black History Month programs. We need to be thinking totally different because literally this election in 2024 is going to be between Biden and an absolute white supremacist, white nationalist fascist in Donald Trump.
Exactly. And Roland, I want to say, when you said that about Kentucky, when we went out, you're exactly right. On a Thursday, we did a teaching, but what also did that Friday, Saturday, people from Louisville to Texas,
Actually, hold on one second. Your phone is breaking up. You said when y'all your phone, we couldn't hear any of that. You said when y'all were in Kentucky, what happened? Red Barber? I think we were losing. Okay, I think we got you back. Go ahead.
Okay, we taught them the facts and the figures and how to go out. They went out all over that state in every county, from the east to the west, from Louisville to Harlan County, teaching people, registering people to vote based on the issues. Now, the pundits have already said Kentucky was just because of abortion. No. Bashir didn't just run. He did talk right about abortion rights and women, but he also said to folk, I'm going to increase the Medicaid I've already expanded. I'm going to continue to do make sure people get their rights back when they felony reenfranchised. I'm going to work to bring jobs and then to raise Kentucky's minimum wage above the federal minimum wage. He talked the language of the people. Went everywhere, and we got to be careful of the mainstream media that want, and even some consultants that just want to look at one issue. This silver bullet issue is not how you win long term. You must see where the pockets of votes are. You must go to those people and talk to them. And again, I want to say it on your show. I've said it for the life of me. I do not know why that we've been asking for 2 years now to bring impacted people, poor low income, from West Virginia, from North Carolina, from key places, from battleground state, into the White House, not to be Democrat or Republican, but to talk about what was done, to hear what's going to be done and continuing, and allow those people to go out and be the microphone. You know, in our campaign, we don't even have to endorse anybody. We endorse the issues and let people look at people and say, listen, where do they stand on Medicaid? Where do they stand on health care? Where do they stand on your life? Where do they stand on living wage? People are smart if you point those things out, but you have and you cannot leave this sleeping giant sleep. And that is poor and low wealth voters are a critical key to a fundamental shift. And lastly, Roland, I've done the data. And I got a book coming out, how the mythology called White Poverty, how the mythology around white poverty continues to exacerbate lies about race and class. And the data shows that poor and low wealth white people even don't in the majority vote against their own self-interest. Most of them don't vote, but when they tend to vote, they actually tend to line up more with black people in terms of the issues that really matter. That's why even in Mississippi, 70% of Republicans want Medicaid expansion. 80% of all Mississippi. We better know these numbers. We better go to these people. We better let them know where the policies are going if folk get elected, because that's where the power lies in this particular season that we're in. One more time, there's not a state where poor and low-income voters don't make up over 33% of the electorate. And in most battleground states, poor and low-income people, that's people who make less than $15 an hour and who are $500 away from economic ruin. In battleground states, they over 40% of the electorate. If you of the electorate, you don't talk to them in your ads, you don't talk to them in your speeches, you don't talk to them door to door, you are actually committing a form of political suicide. If you do recognize them, you will increase, and Dr. King said it like this: the greatest of the racist oligarchy in this country is for the masses of Negroes and the masses of poor whites to come together, form a voting bloc that could fundamentally shift the economic architecture of this nation. We have that possibility right in our hands if we get away from the old style and do the work like you're talking about.
Reverend William Barber, Poor People's Campaign, Repairs of the Breach. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Final comments from our panel. At the end of the day, Robert, again, the work begins now. I always say the end of the election is the end of one. The election is the end of one process, the beginning of another. Guess what? 2023 elections are now gone. Now the focus is, okay, in where I live, what are there school board races next year? Are there county races, city races, state rep, state senate, gubernatorial? Obviously, it's going to be congressional, presidential. This is where take a breath. get some rest, get recharged, get refurbished, but it's time to go to work.
You're absolutely correct. And look, at this period of time when the Republican Party is effectively in shambles, it's not a functioning party, Democrats cannot just simply count on the fact that Donald Trump's going to be in prison and they're going to win by default, which is the attitude that I hear from a lot of Democratic political strategists in the majority right now. The reason that they feel they don't have to put their pedal to the metal in this election, they can kind of wait it out, because they want to play that game of just being in the center, being in the middle, not taking any strong positions, and just let the Republicans defeat themselves. That is not a winning strategy. If you want African Americans to turn out in the same numbers they turned out to save you in 2020 and in 2012, you need to put the work in. If you want young voters to turn out in record numbers, remember these Gen Z voters, they think of President Trump as being the president of free stimulus checks, of PPP loans, and of reality TV, and not having to go to school. They don't have the same view of Trump as other voters do. You have to put in the work to bring them around. It's not enough just simply to have meetings with the elites at the White House. You need to hit the ground running, put forward the legislative agenda that you promised in 2020, show the people you're fighting for it, and show people that with another term, you'll get the job done.
Rebecca.
The Democratic Party can't rely on suburban white women in order to win next year. If that was the case, then last night in the Jackson northern suburbs in Ridgeland, which is Madison County, Mississippi, we would have seen Tate Reeves get voted out as governor, right? So we can't rely on those white women in the suburbs. Instead, it's reaching out to the people who brought you to the dance. In 2020, it was young people that brought Biden to the dance. It was Black men, Black women that brought Biden to the dance. So he's got to spend time doing some deep investment, and not just with those who are quote unquote part of the talented 10th. He needs to stop just talking to folks who are connected, and he needs to talk to those who are disaffected, those who are disenfranchised, and those who are suffering economic setbacks. Those are the people that Biden needs to be talking to starting tonight as we go into the 2024 cycle.
All right, Joe.
I am always inspired by Dr. Barber, and I think that what he said is where we need to be. There's this sleeping giant of millions upon millions upon millions of voters in places where we're supposedly red, but we're actually misread. People there, the votes are there. And there's nobody that understands what Medicaid expansion is that could be affected by it and bettered by it that doesn't want it. Even people that are super conservative, most of the times will go out of their way to say, well, you should have your right to reproductive health, even if it's not my thing necessarily. That's what you found out in Ohio. The votes are there in places where they need to be there. In Wisconsin, the gentleman, I forgot his name, who ran for Senate last time. The votes were there if they had done what they needed to do in Milwaukee. And so as long as we are intentional about going out, educating voters, connecting them to those issues, listening, so that we know that what we are doing is not being pitched on deaf ears, and we're putting them out in the front to help sell what it is that needs to happen, then we can continue to be successful. Again, the Democrats are on the right side of most bread and butter, regular folk issues. And so what we can do is, if we do that work, we can win, but the work has to be done, and it has to be done long term.
Robert.
As I said, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hope still lives, but the dream will never die. But I want to impress upon the Democratic Party, the black folks are not going to turn out with the same old, well, we brought Jay-Z out for the concert, we brought T.I. out, we brought, we went to the barbecue, I got hot sauce, I got a big pile of collard greens. That's not what black voters are looking for right now. You passed $1.7 trillion in infrastructure, $1.5 trillion.
I gotta stop. Hold up, I gotta stop you there, because the black voters matter, folks. Properly use collard greens and food to register people. So I gotta stop you there, because hold up, in your state of Georgia, they were very successful by pairing food drives with voter registration. So I gotta slow you down a little bit there.
We can do that in the third rail. From the administration, we need policy, we need legislation.
That's what I'm saying, but you gotta specify. because, I've been on the road, Black Voters Matter. They use concerts, they use food drives, they use everything at their disposal to register people, to get them to turn out. And so all that works, but you're right, you still have to have policy. But again, everybody has different roles. And the reality is, from the administration standpoint, they have to say, one, what we did, then what we're planning to do. What they can't do is only talk about what we did, because elections are based upon not on what you did, but what you're going to do. And so, again, and for everybody else out there, I keep telling y'all this, and y'all think I'm playing. And I'm gonna do a whole breakdown. I'm trying to figure out when I'm gonna do it. I might do it after the first of the year. I might do it actually before then. But we're gonna spend a whole 2 hours on Project 2025. And y'all really need to understand, these people are not hiding it. They're not keeping it to themselves. They are very clear on what their plans are if Donald Trump takes back the Oval Office. And that is not an America any of us wants to be a part of. Trust me. Joe, Rebecca, Robert, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Everybody who's watching as well, folks. It was a huge night. You had Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who was headed to a runoff against State Senator John Whitmire in the race for Houston mayor. Neither one of them got a majority of the vote, and so they moved to that. That's going to be in a few weeks. Whitmire got 42.5%. Lee got 35.6%. Runoff is going to take place on December 9th. Philadelphia gets its first black female mayor. You have Chanel Parker, elected the city's 100th mayor. And again, first woman to hold the position. Of course, she won the Democratic primary, so she was guaranteed to win as well. And so many people are watching that because she also ran on Law and Order and also believes in stop and frisk. So we'll see what happens there. And plus, a big congratulations to Yusef Salaam. Remember, one of the Central Park Five, the exonerated five? If Donald Trump had his way, they would have got the death penalty. Last night, he officially won, and he is now going to be a member of the New York City Council. He'll represent a Central Harlem district on the City Council. And so certainly congratulations to Yusef Salaam. You also had a North Carolina town electing its first black woman mayor. Barbara Fouché will be the next mayor of Carborough, North Carolina. She served on the town council. She won a seat in 2017, reelected in 2021. She's the first black woman to serve as mayor of the town, the second black person to hold the office. You also have, in Rhode Island, the first African-American member of Congress, Gabe Amo, who served in the Obama and Biden administration, defeated Republican Gary Leonard to win Rhode Island's first congressional district. So congrats to him. So a lot of big wins last night. Folks, that's it for us. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget to support us, what we do. Folks were sitting here sending us via Cash App. They were like, when I was cussing, they were like, hey, keep doing it. So if y'all want to support us, what we do, send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo is RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You also, of course, should get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available in bookstores nationwide. And, of course, you can check us out on Amazon News. So go to Amazon Fire. You can watch our 24-hour streaming channel. You can watch us on Plex TV, Amazon Freevee, as well as Amazon Prime Video. Folks, that's it. I will see you tomorrow. Reese Cobra's going to be sitting in the host chair tomorrow. I've got a dinner at the Vice President's house at 6 p.m., so I will be there. Maybe I'll go live from the grounds at the top of the hour, and so we'll see what happens. All right, y'all. Take care. Holla! Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power!
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?